The shadow is a repository of disowned traits and experiences, parts of ourselves that we have learned not to express through conditioning, through adverse experiences, through trauma, etc. We learn to reject parts of ourselves or not to express them. It's like wearing a mask. We're shaped by our family culture, by our religion, by nationality, through school, and through society. It's often the case that mothers are blamed for not being the mother that their child needed, but actually often the mother is trying to bring the child up in a way that is acceptable to society. So I think that is a little bit limiting to assume that the parents are to blame with everything. We need to look at wider society and see whether that is just part of fitting into the society that the child was brought up in. It may be that you've learned to have different masks for different situations, so behave one way at work, one way with friends, one way when you're at home, one way when you're with family. In fact, family can be quite interesting because if you've left your family home quite some years ago and then when you return, you might find yourself slipping back into certain behaviours to fit in and belong with that group. And again, that is quite telling that the shadow is at play. Interesting question to ask is, would you be comfortable if people from different parts of your life were to meet? So what if people from work, school, your friends were all to meet in one place? If you were to have a party and all those people would come together, how comfortable would you feel like that? Would you feel like you're the same person with all of them, or would you feel like you need to act in different ways depending on who you're talking to? I like to look at it like maybe an orange which has multiple segments, but it makes up a whole. Or maybe a diamond which has multiple facets which make up the diamond. So it's not necessarily that we're not whole or we're not authentic. It's just that different people in our lives see different aspects of us. And that can be okay. It can just be that we've not revealed parts of ourselves because they're not relevant. Or it can be that we're wearing a mask in each different situation and scenario. Hidden parts can carry power. So for example, assertiveness. If you were the youngest child in a family, it may be that you're kind of always seen as the least knowledgeable, the least able, the slowest, the last. But that may not be really true. It may just be that that was your position in the family. But it's possible that you've carried through those traits into other areas of your life because it's been a pattern that's repeated itself many times. So examining that and looking into it and seeing whether that's really true could actually release something which would enable you not to fall in that position in every different scenario, but maybe to be more of a leader if you're not currently. Vulnerability is often something that's hidden in the shadow. If you're an emotional person, it may be that you've just not really been appreciated for expressing that. So that may be something that's been suppressed and hidden away. Also things like psychic gifts. People might find that uncomfortable if you start talking about things that can't be seen, for example, or if you know things about people that haven't been shared. That can make people very uncomfortable, so it might be that you've learned to suppress that. And it could come as a surprise when you start doing shadow work that you have some of these gifts that you weren't even aware of. Having a shadow protects us, so we hide these parts away for a reason. It can be things we've taught to be ashamed of. It can be because if we express ourselves authentically, we just don't fit in. It can be that we attribute qualities of ourselves to others. So rather than recognizing our own power, we see it in others and we haven't learned to embody that ourselves. Maybe ask yourself the question, what did I learn is not okay to express? See what comes to mind. Is there anything that comes to mind immediately, or is it something you need to ponder a bit? Maybe there are multiple things, but if you can just identify one thing, it'll enable you to give that some focus, think about it, and maybe identify what it is and maybe the reasons why you're not expressing it. Quite often though, these things are completely hidden, so it's things that we've learned in early childhood to suppress, so it's not even an unconscious awareness. The ones that are conscious are easier to work with because we can think about them coherently. The ones that are really hidden away are more difficult, but they can come up in dreams, for example. So if you do dream analysis, you might find some of those hidden parts appear in your dreams. usually as different characters. So there'll be characters in your dream who represent those parts that you're not expressing. One reason we've learned not to express ourselves authentically is because as children, we're wholly dependent on our parents or our caregivers for survival. So if we express ourselves in a certain way and it's not approved of or rejected, that could be a survival instinct which is telling us not to behave in that way, because we're literally dependent on the approval of those people looking after us. But our behaviours become ingrained, which is what makes it difficult to see them and difficult to recall or remember our true nature. Because this conditioning starts from a very early age. It's when we're born, right from that moment we're taught not to cry. We're maybe celebrated when we learn to sit up or learn to walk. And that is that approval-seeking part of us which learns that getting approval is a good thing. But it is possible to uncover the shadow if we work with intent and choose to focus on it. It's not going to be easy, but it is very, very worthwhile. So shadow work is an ongoing journey of uncovering things that have been lost. It's not a quick fix. It does take time because things will come up kind of in sequence. You might work on one thing, feel like you've learned and understood about it, but then another thing might come up afterwards, or there might be a lot of depth to something, so it might take a while to work on it and really understand what's going on there. Be kind to yourself, be patient, and be the observer. Don't judge yourself, but just allow these things to unravel and see what comes up. So as I mentioned, the shadow is a potential source of power and insight. It's a very exciting journey, and you can travel this path to live a more authentic and fulfilling life.